The morning of Richard Shaw's funeral felt colder than it should have been for late October in Pennsylvania. The sky was clear, but the air was still and heavy, like even the wind had paused out of respect. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, adjusting the black dress I'd bought just for this day. Not because I didn't already own something appropriate, but because the others, the dresses from weddings, anniversaries, nights out carried too much meaning. This one was different. It had no memories stitched into the seams. It was blank, like I was supposed to be. Our house felt like a museum of echoes. 32 years of marriage, and now it was just me, alone in a 5-bedroom colonial where the walls seemed to breathe in the silence and breathe out grief. It wasn't the kind of silence that soothed. It was sharp, like something had been ripped away, and the fabric of everything I knew was left unraveling. My kids, Michael, Clara, and Ethan had barely been around in Richard's final weeks. Too busy, they said. Deadlines, flights, the kids' schedules. I told myself it was okay, that I'd raised them to be independent. What I didn't realize was that I'd also apparently raised them to be strangers. At the Eternal Light Chapel, Richard lay in the casket we picked out together 20 years ago. That sounds weird, I know, but we'd talked about death long before it felt close. He looked younger, almost, like the cancer had peeled away the weight he carried the last few years. I sat up front, watching the door, checking the time. 10 minutes till the service. No kids in sight. The room filled with people his colleagues, old neighbors, friends from college, but not the ones who mattered most. Not yet. Then I heard the soft click of designer heels and a polite, practiced voice behind me. Mom. I turned. There they were. Michael in a suit, probably worth more than my car's Blue Book value. Clara in heels, too high for a funeral. Ethan, beard neatly trimmed, wearing the watch Richard gave him at his vet school graduation. They looked like they were stepping into a board meeting, not their father's goodbye. All polished, all poised. Michael leaned down and kissed my cheek. I could smell his cologne, sharp, expensive, calculated. We need to talk after, he whispered, about Dad's arrangements, practical things. Practical. That word made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. The service started. It drifted by in a blur of hymnals and floral arrangements. People I barely knew leaned in with sympathetic smiles. The pastor, who met Richard maybe twice, gave a generic eulogy about strength and quiet dignity. I kept waiting, hoping that one of my children would stand up, share a story, a real one, something messy and beautiful and true. Instead, Michael took the podium like he was about to present quarterly results. Clara and Ethan flanked him, like backup dancers at a corporate retreat. Our father believed in legacy. Michael began, confident. He wanted everything he built to remain in the family. Clara added, his business, his properties, his investments. And then Ethan delivered the line that broke something in me. He left everything to us. Mom will be well taken care of. From the back pews, you could have mistaken it for love. But from where I sat, it was a script. I could feel the shift in the room, the side glances, the subtle pity. The message was clear. I was no longer part of the foundation. I was now a dependent, a footnote in someone else's plan. But what my kids didn't know, what no one in that chapel could have guessed, was that Richard and I had seen this coming. We'd spent months planning, meeting with lawyers, drafting and redrafting every detail, not because we were paranoid or bitter, but because we believed in clarity, in legacy, in protecting each other. The week after the funeral, I sat in James Whitman's office. He'd been our estate attorney for over a decade. I watched him organize the documents, the thick folder labeled in Richard's handwriting, Meredith Security. That was Richard. always thinking ahead. James called in my kids from the waiting room. I could already see it in their posture. The confidence, the assumption that the empire had already passed into their hands. They were wrong. The conference room was polished and cold. Like every other legal office, Michael sat closest to the head of the table. Clara already had her legal pad out. Ethan looked calm, but I could see the nerves. James opened the will. As stated, Richard Shaw's estate includes all jointly held properties, business assets, investment portfolios, vehicles, and other financial holdings. These are to be transferred to Michael Shaw, Clara Shaw Hamilton, and Ethan Shaw in equal shares. Michael grinned. Clara nodded and jotted something down. Ethan relaxed. Then James continued. However, these inheritances are conditional. The room froze. First, James said evenly, these distributions are contingent upon continued care and support of their mother, Meredith Shaw, for the remainder of her natural life. This includes, but is not limited to, housing of her choice, full medical coverage, and a monthly allowance of no less than $8. Gillings. Michael's grin faded. Clara's pen froze. Ethan blinked hard. Second, James went on. Should any of the beneficiaries place Mrs. Shaw into institutional care against her will, or fail to meet these obligations, their share will be forfeited and reallocated to a list of pre-selected charitable foundations. Clara opened her mouth, then closed it again. Third, James said, a separate trust of $500. Iero has been created under the sole discretion and control of Meredith Shaw. And then came the final twist. James unfolded a sealed envelope. Your father asked that I read this aloud. He cleared his throat. My dear children, if you are hearing this, then I am gone. And the truth is now yours to carry. I hope you are surprised. I hope you are shocked. And most of all, I hope you finally understand that the woman you tried to cast aside is the same woman who built everything you now hold. The room went silent, not respectful silence, but stunned, empty. Nothing left to say. I watched them take it in. Their future, now defined not by control, but by obligation, by justice, a justice they never saw coming. The days after the will reading were almost haunting. Not a single call, not even a hollow text message, just quiet, the kind that doesn't comfort it accuses. Then, on the third morning, my phone finally rang. Michael, Mom, he began, voice clipped. We need to talk about your living situation. Of course we did. This house, he continued, it's too big. For one person, it's impractical. The upkeep, the heating, the lawn, it's a lot. I'm not discussing anything until the estate process is finalized. I said, calm and even. I know it's emotional, he pushed. But Dad was very clear. We want this transition to be smooth. Transition. Like my life was a job being outsourced. The next day, Clara called. No warm-up. No, how are you? We've been researching assisted living options in Westover, she said briskly. Really nice ones. Social programming. Close to hospitals. I'm 58. Clara, I know, she said quickly, backpedaling. Not now. But Dad wanted us to think ahead. It's about security. That word again, security. A leash disguised as concern. Ethan's call came last. He always was the softest of the three. Mom, he said, I know this is hard, but Dad really wanted you to be okay. He talked to us before things got, he didn't want you to be alone. And what did you say to him, Ethan? That we'd take care of you, so you wouldn't have to worry about anything. Take care of me, like I was a burden, like a stray animal someone agrees to feed, but won't let in the house. A week passed. I spent it in Richard's office sorting files, revisiting plans. I knew every detail, every account, every backup, every intention. Then, one morning at exactly 9:00 a.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the window and saw Michael's car gleaming like an overconfident promise. He was standing there with a bouquet of white roses, my favorite, though I doubt he remembered that on his own. "Mom," he said, "I brought flowers. Can I come in?" I opened the door. Let the performance begin. He sat on the edge of the sofa like a man giving a sales pitch, still holding the flowers like a prop he hadn't rehearsed with. "I want to apologize," he said, "for what we said at the funeral. It wasn't fair. We were grieving." "No," I said, settling into Richard's old recliner. "You were planning, trying to figure out how to manage the inconvenience of your mother." "That's not true," he shot back. "We were looking out for you, for my best interests. According to you." He hesitated, then reached into his coat and unfolded a sheet of paper. "We've drafted a care schedule. Claire, Ethan, and I will rotate. Groceries, doctor's appointments, house stuff. You'll never feel alone." I scanned it. It was exactly what I expected. Corporate-style planning disguised as love. Task lists, assigned responsibilities, structured empathy, and the $8 a month. I asked, "We're setting up a transfer, automatic, first of every month. You don't know yet who's covering what, do you?" "It's a lot of money, Mom. Over time, it adds up." "Yes," I said, folding the paper and placing it on the table. "Your father and I did the math. Almost $4 million if I live another 40 years. Don't you think that's excessive?" He didn't answer, but the silence behind his eyes said it all. "Can you really be worth that much?" "You'll find," I said softly, "that justice rarely comes at a discount." Before he could respond, the front door opened again. "Mom," Clara's voice called, "Michael's car is outside. Are you two in here?" And just like that, the delegation had reconvened. Clara swept in like a closing argument, still in her business suit, briefcase in one hand, paper bag in the other. "I brought cinnamon rolls," she said, lifting the bag. "From Kennedy's. You used to get them every Sunday." "I did," I said, "for 18 years, every Sunday, until you all stopped coming home." Ethan trailed in behind, quieter than usual, shoulders sagging, eyes avoiding mine. "We need to talk," he said, "about how this is going to work." I gestured toward the couch. They sat, carefully spaced, just like at the funeral, a united front. But this time, the cracks were visible. Clara opened her legal pad. "I've been reviewing the will's clauses. If all parties agree, we might be able to revise certain terms." "I don't agree," I said. "Mom, please." Clara's tone softened. "The financial pressure is real. Michael just bought a new house. I'm still paying off law school. Ethan, my clinic can barely stay open." Ethan said, voice strained, "I had to lay off my assistant." "Then you'll make sacrifices," I replied, "like your father and I did, for you." Ethan wiped at his face. Quietly, "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered. "I didn't mean it at the funeral. I followed their lead." I looked at him, my youngest, the boy who used to crawl into our bed during thunderstorms. Now a man who'd stood silent as his siblings turned their grieving mother into a business item. "I remember," I said. "I remember everything." The silence that followed felt different. This time, I let it sit. 6 months have passed since that meeting in the lawyer's office. I'm wearing the same navy dress I wore that day, still in this house, my house, the one they wanted to transition me out of. Every first of the month, the money arrives, like clockwork, from Michael's business account. Because he's the only one with liquidity, Clara sends hers quarterly, stretched thin. Ethan had to sell his house to keep up. They call every Sunday, together, speakerphone. The tone is always the same, polite, rehearsed, a check-in disguised as love. How are you, Mom? Did you take your meds? Need help with the furnace? I let them talk. Let them believe they're doing enough. Until one Tuesday, I called Michael. Can you help in the basement? I asked. Some filing cabinets. Might be papers Dad wanted you to see. He groaned, but came anyway, in a suit. Of course, 6 hours later, covered in dust, he found something: Richard's original business partnership agreement. A game changer. This could restructure everything, he muttered, eyes wide. You mean take over? I said, and I took it from him. That paper now lives in my safe, alongside every other secret they never thought I'd uncover. Insurance policies, investment accounts, property deeds, all under my name, hidden behind layers of trust Richard and I built together. Claire's test came next. I asked for help with insurance questions. She showed up with contracts and court references. I told her there was no dispute. I just wanted to know my options. She said nothing, just opened her laptop and wrote me a 47-page brief. Ethan's test was the most personal. On Richard's death anniversary, I asked him to come over. We looked through old photo albums. He cried, apologized. I listened, felt nothing, no forgiveness, only the deep, cold truth that sometimes justice doesn't heal, it exposes. Now, they go through the motions, every Sunday, every first of the month, carefully, dutifully, but they still don't get it. This was never about the money. It was about what happens when people treat the person who built their foundation like a burden to manage. It was about letting them reveal who they are when they think they're in control. And now they pay for access, for proximity, for the right to say we care when every action says otherwise. They show up with bakery bags and bullet points, thinking structure can replace sincerity. It can't. It won't. Sometimes they look at me, waiting, hoping to see the softness return, hoping I'll become the mother who once made every holiday magical. But she's gone. She disappeared the day they turned a grieving widow into a checklist. All that's left now is someone who remembers everything, and someone who finally has the power to make sure they do. 2